Hare Krishna. Maharaj is coming.
Oh, okay, I see. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you so much.
He'll be here in like 1 or 2 minutes. Hare
No problem.
Krishna.
Prabhu, you're sharing the YouTube link. Can you post it?
Yes, Prabhuji. I'll post it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Give me that box of wires there. So open it.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribo.
Please accept my respectful obeisances. Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you so much for giving your valuable time, Maharaj, for our yatra. So we'll give a quick introduction, Maharaj, and then we can start.
Okay. Krishna Nanda Ananda. The Krishna Namananda. Okay.
Yes. So His Holiness Chandramauli Swami Maharaj, disciple of the Divine Gajasi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Maharaj is born in New Jersey, 1947. Came in contact with ISKCON in Denver, Colorado at the age of 24 in 1973. Maharaj began practicing Krishna consciousness in New York City. Shortly thereafter, began serving at New Vrindavan Farm Community in West Virginia. The same year, Maharaj received the initiation from Srila Prabhupada. In 1986, Maharaj accepted the sannyas order and began preaching in Cincinnati and Columbus, Ohio. In the early 1980s, he became involved in the ISKCON prison ministry in the US and began visiting prisoners and holding programs in jails, along with regularly writing letters to inmates and sending them to Srila Prabhupada's books. Maharaj is now the leader of the ISKCON prison ministry and has worked tirelessly to document the spiritual progression of the worldwide inmate community. His dedication to the welfare, growth, sustainable rehabilitation of these prisoners has culminated in the book Holy Jail, a touching compilation of the activities of ISKCON prison ministry. In over 30 years of operation, the lives of hundreds of inmates have changed due to the practice of Krishna consciousness and the support received by devotees. In 1995, Maharaj began serving as the resident sannyasi in Chicago, where he was based until 2013, and he relocated to Croatia. At present, Maharaj offers spiritual guidance around Europe, USA, and India. So, thank you. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Can start.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Gyan Timirandasya Gyananjana Savakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya De Sitarine Vanchakalpa Thurubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Paeva Japatitanam Bhavane Bhyo Vaishnave Bhyo Namaho Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So just a refresher, I was asked to speak on the 6 enemies of the mind. Is that the topic?
How to conquer our 6 enemies, Maharaj, in the context of, as we are having a Vijay Dashmi next Friday, where Lord Ramachandra has conquered over Ravana, representing the 6 enemies. In that context, this topic was chosen.
Okay, it's interesting because Ramachandra, or Sri Ram, appeared in order to, for many reasons, of course, it's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, Yadaya Daya Dhamasya Glani Bhavati Bharata, Bhutanam Adharmasya Nityadatmaham Sujamyaham, Pavitranayan Saruram Vinashanaya Chaduskritam Dharma Samstapanartaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. So discrepancy when there is a significant decline in religious principles and a significant rise in the demoniac population, the Lord appears. Sometimes people say, well, that's the situation today, and that is undoubtedly true. So how has the Lord appeared in this age? He's appeared in two ways, in the form of his name, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, who is an incarnation of the Lord, who came to deliver the name personally and to teach the process of purification of the heart, to conquer over the enemies of the mind, lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, and envy. In Sanskrit, we understand them as kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, and matsarya, the six enemies of the mind. They exist both externally in the form of the personalities who exhibit these, also known as demoniac persons, and they are internally there within in the consciousness of the living entity due to the association of the three material modes of nature, especially and particularly the lower modes of passion and ignorance. Simply by that association, these things arise. To what degree they become enemies is to the degree one absorbs themselves in material activities with a desire to enjoy material life. And it's interesting that Lord Ram, he conquered over one particular demon, and that was Ravana. Now, Ravana is the second, as it's mentioned in the Shastras, in the series of manifestations of three great personalities who fell from the spiritual world, known as Jai and Vijay, because of their offense to the four Kumaras. Of course, their appearance was more than just that offense. Everything was arranged by the Lord for them to fall in order for the Lord to engage in fighting. The spirit of fighting, sometimes Prabhupada would say, where do you get that fighting spirit? It's there in Krishna. Because we are prototypes in a smaller version of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we also have that tendency to fight. Of course, when it's directed in the proper way, it is glorious, and it's called Dharma Yudhya. Yudhya means to fight, and Dharma means to fight for religious principles. But when it's taken in other areas, it becomes a source of these six enemies, especially the source of anger. So Ravana, he was a personification of lust. Each of the three manifestations of the two manifestations or two personalities in the spiritual world, they exhibit these six characteristics as they appeared in the material world to fight with Krishna. And I'll just mention that without getting into too much detail. I'll speak more about these six characteristics. We don't give them that much credit. We call them enemies of the mind, enemies of the soul. The first manifestation of Jai and Vijay was Aranyaksa and Hiranyakasipu. The second was Ravana and his brother Kumbhakarna. And the third was Dantravarka and Shishupal. Now I'll just quickly align each of those six anarthas with these six demons. Now, each of the demons have all of these anarthas, but there is one outstanding anartha that sort of personifies that particular demon. And you'll see it, and it's easy to understand. Aranyaksa was the personification of greed. He was so greedy that he simply took so much gold out of the earth that the earth fell from its orbit. We have his brother, Hiranyakashipu. He was the manifestation of pride. His pride was so strong that he thought he was invincible and there was nobody greater than him. He challenged everyone and anyone. And his pride was a form of arrogance. And of course, he was killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Nrsingadev. And then you have the second manifestation, Ravana. And Ravana was the personification of lust. He had everything material and more. He had followers, he had wealth, he had many women, he had the most qualified women practically in existence at the time. His main wife or his main consort was Mandodari, who was considered to be glorious among glorious women. And he had, Lanka was made out of gold, palaces, so much wealth. But we understand from Shastra and we understand from the example that lust is never satisfied. The more you feed the lust, the more the lust grows. And so, being never satisfied, he chased after the consort of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sita Devi, Lakshmi Devi herself, Mahalakshmi actually. And he went into the wrong area. Even his relatives, friends, well-wishers were saying, you have so much, just leave this one lady alone. But he couldn't hear. And that's the quality of lust. It overshadows a person's intelligence. And one cannot hear good advice when one is absorbed in fulfilling lusty desires. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that this lust is like a blazing fire. And the more you feed it, the more, just like the more you add fuel to the fire, the more the fire burns stronger. Now, some people have this wrong idea, and it looks like it's the antidote, that when you satisfy lust, the lusty desires seem to reduce simply by that satisfaction. But that is the analogy. The analogy is that when you take a log and you throw it on the fire may go down for a little while because of the added fuel. But then you'll see, give it some time, and then that log will also burn brightly and the fire will rage even stronger. So this is an example of how satisfying these desires only increases them. Although temporary, they seem to give some relief to the anxiety that one experiences by that unfulfilled desire. It's simply an illusion created by Maya. His brother, Kumbhakarna, personification of illusion. He was Mohan personified. He was given the benediction, you might say, or you can actually say curse by Lord Brahma, that he could be awake one day a year. This came at the time when they all came before Lord Brahma for benedictions. When Kumbhakarna came for a benediction, the demigods came to Lord Brahma and said, this man is already creating so much havoc in the universe. If you give him another benediction, there will be nothing left of our planets. And so Lakshmi, she appeared. Actually, and that wasn't Lakshmi, I'm sorry. Well, Lakshmi in the sense that of her expansion, Saraswati. Saraswati appeared. And when it was time to receive a benediction, she spoke. And when Kumbhakarna said, I want, then she spoke out of his mouth, and he said, I want to sleep. So when his brother, Ravana, heard that, he was really upset. Well, you can't give him that benediction, you know. Well, then Brahma said, all right, well, it's not a benediction, it was a curse. We'll give him a little reprieve from that. He can sleep 364 days a year, and he can come out one day and he can eat, and he can eat as much as he wants on that day, one day a year. Well, that was the restructuring of the curse. So we know he used to come out one day a year and eat. So his whole business was to eat and sleep, that's all. So that's called moha, illusion. Simply the bodily conception of life, thinking that eating and sleeping will give one happiness, free from suffering, misery. That's simply a bodily need that's regulated, but when it's personified or exasperated, we might say increased unnecessarily, it comes into the category of being illusioned in the bodily conception of life. And then we have the last two manifestations of Jaya and Vijaya as they appeared in the world during Krishna's Leela, and that was Dantravarka and Shishupal. Dantravarka was a personification of anger. Krishna was on his way back to Vrindavan to visit the residents of Vrindavan, and he was in a hurry to get there because he knew that the residents of Vrindavan were endangered by the demons. But Dantravarka came in the way of Krishna and challenged him to a fight. And Krishna didn't waste time with him. He simply punched him and finished the demon off. So at one point it describes in the battle between the two, Dantravarka's club was knocked out of his hand. So he simply charged Krishna with his red hot anger. And he tried to capture Krishna with anger, and Krishna just didn't want to waste time with this demon because he was in a hurry to get back to Vrindavan. So that was the end of Dantravarka. Simply punched him, and that was it. Krishna's punch is like the atomic bomb. So that's just a small analogy. But in other words, Krishna is all powerful. Just like when he hit that washerman in Mathura, he simply took his hand and hit him on the neck and cut his head off just by hitting him with his hand. Krishna's body is all powerful. He can use it in any way. It includes all the weapons that we can ever imagine. This is Krishna. Okay, so then the last one was Shishupal. Shishupal was a personification of envy. Envy, he was so envious of Krishna. He was born with 4 arms, and his mother took him to an astrologer, and the astrologer said that he was actually the cousin of Krishna, and his mother was Krishna's auntie. And the astrologer said, well, he has 4 arms, but when he sees the person who will kill him, 2 of his arms will fall off. Okay? So she wasn't sure how to process that. So it became time for a ceremony to welcome the new baby into the family. So she invited all the relatives, and she invited Krishna to come to see her new child. Krishna said, you don't want to invite me. No, it's my baby. And she was overwhelmed with happiness. Please come and bless my baby. You're not going to like it when I come. So she was demanding, and Krishna said, all right. So he came. And at one point, when Shishupal saw Krishna, as a little baby, 2 of his arms fell off. And then his mother got really shocked. Krishna, you're going to be the cause of the destruction of my child? I don't want to kill him, but he hates me. He hates me. But I'll give him a benediction. He can blaspheme me for 100 times without stopping. But if he goes beyond 100, then I have to do something. So this happened many times, but at the Rajasuya sacrifice, when Krishna was given the position of being the greatest of all personalities to be honored in that sacrifice, Shishupal became really irate and started to blaspheme Krishna. And Krishna was counting 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100. And then, oops, he went over 101. Then Krishna gave him a haircut below the chin and removed his anartha, which was his envy. And then Krishna killed that particular demon. He was a cousin of Krishna, but he was very envious of Krishna. So these are the 6 personalities who appeared, and they personified one of the 6 anarthas. They call them envies of the mind. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur writes, and I think this is a reference to the Hari Bhakti Vilas by Sanatan Goswami. He takes this point that these 6 enemies, the greatest of all the 6 enemies is envy. It's explained that in lust, anger is there. In anger, lust is there. In greed, anger and lust is there. In illusion, lust, anger, and greed is there. In pride, lust, anger, illusion, and greed is there. And in envy, all of the 6 anarthas appear in some form or another. Envy is the cause of the living entities falling to the material world. That's explained by Srila Prabhupada. He says that because of our enviousness of Krishna in the spiritual world, then you might think, well, how is that possible? But it's explained that Krishna is the center, and everything centers around Krishna, but it's done in a loving way. But if a living entity thinks, why can't I be the center? Why does Krishna have to be the center? Then that consciousness immediately projects one out of the spiritual world into the material world. And based on that anartha, which is the root of all anarthas, then so many other anarthas appear. And Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain that this anartha of envy is so detrimental to one's devotional service that it causes one to exhibit lust, anger, greed, and various other types of bad qualities. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, those who are never envious of me, he speaks that to Arjuna, I give him this knowledge. What is that knowledge? How to overcome the material energy and be fixed in devotional service. So this envy is one of the worst of all of the anarthas. And Prabhupada goes on to say, because the living entity falls in the material world because of that anartha, then it manifests itself between the living entities in the material world. So you might ask, well, how do we get rid of this envy? Envy is gotten rid of in a couple of ways. One, of course, the process of bhakti, devotional service, is meant to reduce the effects of these anarthas and ultimately relieve them. But the scriptures also mention that one can practice certain good qualities which are antidotes or neutralizations of these anarthas. So learning to become satisfied with whatever Krishna has given you, whatever Krishna has arranged for you to be, who you are. In other words, find satisfaction in yourself and don't think or don't look outside for something else. Oh, I wish I had that, or I wish I could be like that, or I wish that person didn't have what he has, or she has what she has, or they're getting recognition. Why am I'm not getting recognition? I want to be the temple president, and I'm only the guy who, sweeps the temple. Why can't I be popular too? So these are all indications or symptoms of that disease called envy. So learning to be satisfied, and satisfaction has to come by way of one's connection with Krishna. So when we're engaged in devotional service, we can feel the sense of satisfaction that Krishna is there and giving us everything we need when we need it. And if we don't get something, that means we didn't need it. If we can be satisfied in that way, then we're happy. And the other process of understanding it is that someone else receives some mercy, some benediction, materially, some promotion, some position. The devotee thinks, oh, that's nice. They feel happy. Now, is there envy in the spiritual world? Yes, there is. Prabhupada makes that point. It's interesting. He says the gopis, they see, one gopi says, oh, look at that gopi. She's serving Krishna so nicely, and Krishna is so pleased by her service. I want to do better than her. Now, there's no enmity, mean spirit, competition in it, but the competition is there in the sense that trying to do better service in order to please Krishna. So spiritual envy is allowed where people compete to see who can serve Krishna the best, and whoever excels in that area, in other words, everyone becomes happy. Oh, you serve Krishna so nicely. So that is the envy in the spiritual world. There's no, oh, I wish I would have won. No, Krishna is the benefactor because everyone's trying to please him. And so that competition in the spiritual realm is actually the way to increase our bhakti towards Krishna. But it's never directed mean-spiritedly towards another way, a person. That's a little bit about envy. Lust, we mentioned a little bit about lust, how to overcome lust. The antidote for overcoming lust is love, actually. The love for material things, or the desire to fulfill one's enjoyment in a material sense, is an indication of lust. And that sometimes people mistakenly think, or devotees mistakenly think, that has to do with something sexual, but that's just a small part of it. It means anything. I want more money. I want more prestige. I want more followers. I want more. So that these are all indications of that enemy called lust. So devotee, again, is satisfied with whatever Krishna gives, and they engage in devotional service. They can purify that lust. And Krishna speaks to Arjuna in the 3rd chapter when Arjuna asks, what causes a man to act against their best interest? In other words, knowingly doing the wrong thing. One knows something is wrong, but they still do it. We have the example Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra knew that his son Duryodhana was greedy, and he was trying to destroy the Pandavas, but still he supported his son, even though he knew his sons were acting wrongly. But because he was attached to them as family members, he couldn't give up that attachment, knowing it was wrong. So this is an example. A material example is a person will see on the package of cigarettes, it says if you smoke, you will get this disease, that disease. You can even die from cancer, but still, people do it anyway. So Arjuna asks that question: what causes a man to act sinfully, even though they understand it's wrong? And Krishna says it is lust and lust only. which comes in contact with the material motive passion, later is transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. And Krishna describes the different levels of lust and using the different analogies. And finally, he comes to the point of saying that this, he calls it the number one enemy of self-realization. And he said it's destroyed by regulation in devotional service. By regulating the mind and senses and engaging in devotional service, one can conquer over this enemy of self-realization. So that's one of the antidotes. And another way is to whatever you desire for yourself, that is beyond what you need, simply give it to Krishna. That's all. Give it to Krishna, and then it becomes purified. It turns into bhakti. So serving Krishna with our energy, our time, our resources, our intelligence, our words, these are ways to purify that lusty desire, engaging in devotional service. Greed, it's similar. Greed is a very low quality. When you see people who are greedy, it's very, very common now. Nobody's satisfied by what they have. They only want more, even if they have too much of what they already have. You see big businesses are always trying to make 200, 300, 500, 1,000% profit on everything they do. They have $1 billion, they want 2 billion. We have so many examples in the world today. People who are extremely wealthy are simply doubling, tripling, and quadrupling their wealth regularly every year. So it's a disease, actually. Greed is actually a mental disease. And it causes one to be cruel towards others or to exploit others for one's own satisfaction. Greed is in the mode of ignorance. Lust is more like in the mode of passion, but greed is in the mode of ignorance. So Prabhupada says, and the Bhagavatam also confirms, that be greedy for devotional service. I want to do more service. I want to satisfy Krishna more. I want to chant more. I want to read more. I want to become more engaged in devotional service. So dovetailing that tendency for greediness in the activities of devotional service. Pride. It's interesting. Pride is called madda. Madda is translated as madness. That those who exhibit materialistic pride are considered to be madda, or to use a very simple word, crazy. The living entity, Jiva Sarupa Krishna and Nityadas. Every living entity is part and parcel. The word Jiva has another meaning. It means tiny. The living entity is very small, but somehow Prabhupada told one story where one very senior devotee in Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada was in Los Angeles, and Prabhupada could see that this senior devotee was exhibiting some, noticeable pride continuously. So Prabhupada decided to give a little message in the form of a story. And he said that the material world is 1/4 of existence, and the spiritual world is 3/4. And so therefore, the material world is just, 1/4 of everything in existence. But in that 1/4, there are so many universes. And in those universes, there are so many unlimited, uncountable living entities. Now, within one of those universes, there are so many planets. And Prabhupada once said, this particular universe we're in is the smallest of all the universes. So on those planets, there are so many living entities. And then Prabhupada went on to say, and here we are on planet Earth, and we have so many living entities, and there are so many countries, and in each country there are so many living entities. And then here we are in the United States of America, and the United States of America, there are so many living entities. And in the United States of America, there are so many cities. And here we are in Los Angeles. And so there are so many living entities in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles has so many streets. And here we are in Watsika Boulevard. And there are so many living entities in Watsika Boulevard. And then Prabhupada went on, and then in that Watsika Boulevard, there are so many houses. And one of the houses is a Hare Krishna temple. And there's one person in that Hare Krishna temple who thinks I'm great. And so I think the message was clear. So Prabhupada used that to make that point that we are very small. We are just insignificant compared to the living entities. And compared to Krishna, we are totally insignificant. So if we do something, or say we're born in a nice family, we have some wealth, we have some good children, we have some good intelligence, we have nice position, the tendency is to become proud. Tendency is to become proud, thinking, well, now these are different ways that pride can manifest. By birth, if one is good looking, one becomes proud of their good looks, thinks I'm better than others. Good birth, good family, intelligence, good position. Now, all of the senses of pride that can manifest, there's a beautiful story in the Srimad Bhagavatam with Nala Kubera and Manigriva. They become so proud that they didn't even take heed of their embarrassing situation when Narada Muni came by. We all know the story. And Narada Muni cursed them because of their arrogance and their pride. And Prabhupada, in giving the commentary to that particular story, explains that of all the forms of pride, the most strongest form of pride is wealth. Wealth, out of all the forms of pride, because one who is wealthy and is proud of that wealth, they think, well, I don't need God. I got money. I can control people. I can buy things. I can go anywhere. I'm God. So although they might not actually think like that, they have that mentality which exhibits that mood that I am, the supreme. So this pride comes by wealth. So using one's wealth in the service of the Lord and realizing that, as Krishna says, everything comes from me. All manifestations of the material energy are meant to be used in my devotional service. So wealth is Lakshmi. We see how Ravana stole Sita. Sita is a personification of Lakshmi Devi. She's Mahalakshmi. He had so much wealth, but then because he went into the wrong area to steal the wife of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was Mahalakshmi himself, he lost everything, including his life, of course. But the idea is that wealth used in the service of the Lord becomes a process of elevating oneself and wealth unnecessarily used for sense gratification. Of course, we understand that everyone has personal needs, and Krishna allows for that to manifest. But if it goes beyond what is personally needed, then that wealth is being used simply to bring that person down into the material modes of material energy like that. So using wealth in the service of the Lord and seeing wealth as Lakshmi Devi, the manifestation of the Lord's internal energy, being non-different. So for a devotee, it's Lakshmi, and for the non-devotee, it's Durga, which is an expansion of Mahalakshmi. Okay, and then you have illusion. We spoke a little bit about illusion. Illusion manifests itself in different ways. The basic principle of illusion is, I think I am this material body. I am the mind, I am the body. These persons who are my family members, they belong to me. Majanasa moham yam maham mameti. I see that my family members, they're also belonging to me. Well, we have a connection with those living entities, and to serve that living entity in a particular way. And we also develop relationships and affection based on that position that we have with these other living entities. But ultimately, they are parts and parcels of Krishna. And we're with them one life, and maybe after this life, we're with another set of living entities who we call family members also. Family members and friends, they change life after life. Sometimes they come again in the same, in the next life in a different form, but sometimes they don't. So this idea of illusion that I am this body, and these are my possessions in the form of family members, friends, like that. So that is, and of course, there is many forms of illusion. And that's the basic form, because the basic form is the foundation for all other sources of illusion. As long as the living entity identifies themselves with the material body, and then they create all these other forms of illusion, which are, I am this, I am that, I am wealthy, I am beautiful, I'm this, I'm that, all these. So our real identity is Jiva Sarupai Krishna Nityadas. We are eternally servant of Krishna. And we use whatever Krishna gives us in devotional service. And that's the principle of freedom. Now, one of the things I would like to mention in this discussion, this element of anger. Even devotees get subjected to anger many times. So what is anger? Material anger and spiritual anger. They're both categories as anger, but one is elevating and one is degrading. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says anger is the younger brother of desire. The younger brother. So when one has material desires that are unfulfilled, then it turns into something unpleasant. It can go into anger. It can turn in towards oneself as a low self-esteem, which is another form of material attachment. This anger is, and of course, one is directed outward. It's devastating. It's the source of wars in the world. Of course, envy is the source of the world's wars, but anger is used in order to fulfill one's desire to overcome another person. So anger. So how do you get free from anger? Of course, we have the spiritual anger, and that is dovetailing it in devotional service. But then in general, when we meet a situation in the world and there's a tendency to become angry, the antidote, as mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 7th canto, is that one should practice forgiveness. One should practice forgiveness, learning how to forgive a person, a situation that has caused one to feel a sense of anger. Of course, there's righteous anger. If a parent is angry at the child for the benefit of the child, that is considered to be service to the child. Sometimes a guru gets angry at the disciple. That is beneficial for the disciple because it comes with instructions how to overcome the problem. And so there are beneficial ways to use anger in devotional service or even in the practical sense. But when it's uncalled for and unnecessary, then the antidote is to learn how to practice forgiveness. And that's one of the most important of all the qualities of Brahminical life, learning how to forgive. In fact, that's a very glorious quality. So I tried to cover everything in this short period of time. You gave me enough topics for a week seminar. I tried to condense it. I hope I didn't go too fast. And somehow I tried to cover all of those 6 anarthas. So, of course, the power of one devotional service, along with being aware of these anarthas, will gradually reduce the effects of the anarthas, and ultimately they'll be transformed into objects that we can use in devotional service.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. It was expertly given. So you condensed it very nicely so that we can understand and practice it. Yeah, a couple of reflections came while hearing, as you mentioned about Artha. Prabhupada mentions in places about Paramartha and Vyartha. When it is used in Lord service, it is Paramartha. But when it is not used, then it is Vyartha. Today I was reading, then I heard another word, Ardhavit. One who is a Paramahamsa, one who can distinguish matter and spirit and use it in Krishna's word, is called Ardhavit. New word in Dhruva Maharaj's pastime, Prabhupada is talking about this Ardhavit.
Yeah. Vid has a meaning of intelligence also.
Yes.
Or understanding. Yeah.
Yes. And then I was reflecting on the Kshama, forgiveness. Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see that Prabhupada explains in the purport one of the quality of the advancement of Abhyartha Kaladam, Namagana Sadaruchi, Pritita Vastistale, Kshama, Mana Sunyata. So one of them is the forgiveness. And we can see that from your lecture and how much you are dedicated and exemplified this quality. I can see that in your present preaching, and we can see we also have one of our devotees who's helping in present ministry preaching, Govindanandani Mataji. So we can clearly see this. Unless we develop this quality of forgiveness, it's just not possible to preach this in this mode, especially. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you. Nice summation. Very nice. Thank you. So, do we have time for questions?
Yes, Maharaj. Dear devotees, please raise your hands or put in chat if you like to ask questions.
There's a question from Gail Mataji.
Marupati Prabhu, my obeisances, Hare Krishna.
That's the problem. Yes.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see
Gail
you.
Mataji, go ahead. Go ahead, Gail.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Gail here. You were saying that the mode of passion is the cause of lust, and the mode of ignorance is the cause of greed. So I was wondering about the other 4. What modes control pride, envy, anger?
Yeah, well, they're all mixed in. It's not that greed is simply relegated to the mode of ignorance, but it has more of that quality of the mode of ignorance than it does in the mode of passion. But all of these 6 anarthas are mixed with these 2 lower modes.
Mhm.
All 6, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and also, well, actually, you did answer that question. I was going to ask about the fact that Kumbhakarna, he represents illusion, but because all 6 seem to exhibit this illusion, this identification with the body. But as you said, I think that
that's the basis of all of this.
yeah,
Identification with the body means then that illusion projects itself to fulfill all these other material desires. That's mentioned by Lord Brahma in the prayers that he gave to Lord Krishna after he stole the cowherd boys and calves. The following chapter, and towards the end, it's explained that, the presence of the body brings about all of these other attachments connected to the body and the identification with the body. Yeah. So, and that's based on that's illusion. That illusion means something that appears to be real, but is not real.
But since all of them involve this identification with the body, how come Kumbhakarna was singled out as representing illusion?
Well, more so. And as I explained earlier, each of the demons have all of these 6 qualities, characteristics. But if you study each one, you'll see one particular anartha is more outstanding. That's all.
But with Kumbhakarna, was it that he was identifying with the body on more of a grosser level?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, eating and sleeping. That's all he did. Slept most of the year, and when he woke up that one day, he simply ate. That's all. And then after eating the whole day, he would go back to sleep. And then only when there was a fight, when they woke him up in order to fight against Ram, then he turned to then he engaged in battle. But prior to that, all he was doing was eating and sleeping. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj.
There's one message in chat box from Saita Murthy Raja. If we overcome envy, which is the basis for all other 6 enemies? Question mark.
If we overcome, what is the question? If we overcome envy, does that mean all the other desires go also?
Yeah, that looks like that's how I understood as.
Well, that's the one to work on. Prabhupada says that the difference between material and spiritual is those who are envious are in the material world, those who are non-envious are in the spiritual world. A very clear-cut statement by Srila Prabhupada. That's how glorious non-enviousness is.
One more question.
It's not easy to get to that stage of non-enviousness. Sometimes we think, oh, I'm okay. I'm not envious of anybody. But then again, when you're put into a situation, then you can evaluate.
But
Just see how your mind reacts. You may not act in the envious way, but sometimes you feel that way. There's a feeling that comes up, and you think, "Oh, that's not right."
Yes, Prabhuji, that is the basis for the envy. Is the basis for the all things, right? When we control our mind and take out envy from our mind, will the mind, the body, mind and soul will be happy?
Well, you take it, it has to be taken out from its root cause. And that's in the consciousness itself. Mind is not consciousness. Consciousness is covered, there's material consciousness which is exhibited through the mind. And that is the association with material energy that manifests itself in these different characteristics or enemies of the mind, such as envy. But the mind is where that's exhibited, but it goes deeper into the consciousness. So when consciousness becomes covered, when material consciousness develops, these anarthas also start to manifest within the consciousness. And the root cause of that material consciousness is envy. You know, why should Krishna, be the center? Why not me?
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Prabhuji.
Or, Krishna can be the center in his area and I'll be the center in my area. He's not interested in the material world. He's interested more in the spiritual realm. So he can be the big guy there and I'll be kind of like, important down here. So we have,
He's running the show. He is everywhere.
Yeah, but we rationalize differently. When we invite him in, then he's running the show, but then we don't invite him in, but we don't realize he's still running the show.
Thanks, Prabhuji.
That's Krishna.
Yeah.
Next, we have 3 more questions. Master Devakinandan.
We have Devakinandan in there. You can see he's got his big hand raised high in the air.
Yes.
Devakinandan, my obeisances to you and to your whole family. Turn on your volume.
Prabhu, you're on mute maybe.
Prabhu, you have on mute. Yes.
Yes. Hare Krishna Maharaj. All glories to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Nice to see you.
Maharaj, you have given me so much love and care. Not only just me personally, but to all my family. You have come to my house many, many times and allowed me to serve. So please continue giving me some service, so I can do something for Srila Prabhupada. But your divine wisdom has so many practical points for devotees. I know I have learned so much from your IDC courses. Whenever I conduct IDC course, I always refer to your videos you have given, I believe, in Chicago. So please forgive me for not on par with your desire for me to serve you. So I ask for forgiveness publicly.
I can only think of all of the wonderful things you did to help us preach when we were staying at your house. So many things. We would have never made it without your, not only your arrangements, but the wonderful prasadam cooked by your wife. Which all of the devotees who came with me do not forget that. They still remember.
When I heard the news about Janaki Das Prabhu, my heart was broken.
Yeah.
With forgiveness, Maharaj, one reflection, and I think it's a question also. You can say something more. We see in the Shastras examples, like you mentioned, about Dhritarashtra, Ravana, and many others. But then they had their counterparts, Gandharis there, Mandodaris there, and those are good-hearted devotees, and they're trying to forgive their husbands, Mandodari and Dhritarashtra in this case. We see in the same line sometime as manager, as gurus, you also might find, some disciples like me who will make mistakes and, and out of anger, out of lust, out of greed, illusion. But then you let them stick around, you don't give them up because you have the quality as guru, as wonderful devotees to forgive. So how to kind of understand that where, like for Mandodari not to leave Ravana, still stick around and saying, keep giving him instructions, but not to leave him, not to say, heck with you. I don't want you to be my husband. Please, if you can share some of practical wisdom from the Shastra in that line, I appreciate.
What was the basis of their feelings, that they tolerated everything and forgave? And at the same time, we also have the example of the Nagapatis with Kaliya, how much they offered beautiful prayers. And it was because of their prayers, they said, we know our husband, he's very envious. He's caused so many offenses to other living entities. But you have purified him by dancing on his head. And, they were reunited with their husband after Krishna spared his life. So they were dutiful wives, even though their husband was, what we say, a rascal, to use a very small word. They didn't give him up. I think that's also the principle of Vedic culture, where a wife tries to change the husband rather than giving them up. It becomes the support of the husband if the husband somehow or other goes off. But we don't see that in material society. You see that when things go off, then the relationships break down. But Vedic culture is that, the wife stays with the husband no matter what. That's training, that's culture, that's etiquette, that's you might say that's love. But the love is supported by religious principles. But because people don't follow basic religious principles, the love gets challenged by situations. But that wasn't there with the Nagapatis, with Gandhari, with Mandodari and the queens. Yeah. That was their husband, and they were gonna, stay with him, try to correct him, but they didn't give him up.
Thank you so much.
Imagine if we had more of that in today's society. Even from the material point of view, that society wouldn't be so dysfunctional. That people could learn to work with each other's faults because of the relationships that's already been established. But because people are not educated, or at the same time, the focus in material life is sense gratification. So that disturbs the other person's sense gratification. So that ultimately disturbs the relationship. But if somebody does something wrong and it doesn't disturb it shouldn't disturb my sense gratification. But if it does, that's what's the cause of the breakdown. the devotees are not thinking, I should get some sense gratification out of this relationship. I should become a servant in this relationship. Does that make sense?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Much needed for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. 10:05 looks like one more question is there in the chart. And, yeah, two more.
We have another question somewhere?
Radhika Kishori Mataji is asking, if I am going to do any services to always laziness and becoming ahead, how can I overcome this laziness?
Can you repeat the question, please?
If I am going to do any service to Krishna, always laziness will be coming ahead. How can I overcome this laziness? Radhika Kishori.
When you understand that doing this service is for your benefit. Prabhupada tells the story of, the king who was ruling one particular kingdom. And people were coming to the minister and saying they wanted food, they wanted shelter, but they didn't want to work. So it was becoming too much, and the minister was getting disturbed. So he said to the king, this is the situation. So the king said, all right, build a big house and invite all the lazy men in the community to come, and we'll give them a place to stay and free food. So the house filled up really fast. And then when the house was filled up, the minister told the king said, all right, now set it on fire. And so he set it on fire and everybody ran out except two men. And two men were there and the fire was going, and one man said to the other, it's getting kind of warm in here. And the other one said, that's all right, just move around to the other side. And so he reported that to the king, and the king said, these men are actually lazy, you can feed them. So the point is that for our personal interest, we're not lazy. But for Krishna's interest, we may be lazy. But we don't understand that Krishna doesn't have any interest. Our service to Krishna is for our benefit. When we understand it's for our benefit to chant, to serve, to read, to associate, to worship, then we don't become lazy. We understand, yes, this is, and then we get past that mood of laziness and we start to feel happy in the activity. And when we start feeling happiness, there's no question of laziness anymore. We actually look forward to the activity. So understand that devotional service is for your spiritual growth, for your benefit, and ultimately for your happiness.
Thank you. Thank you. One more question is there before that. Maharaj, is there a possibility to give us in-person class for Sunday feast next week? I heard you're leaving on 18th to Dallas or something.
Well, right now I'm in New York. I'm in Brooklyn. And from here, I go to Connecticut. And I'm on Friday, I'm in New Haven. Friday, Saturday, New Haven, Connecticut. And Sunday in Hartford, Connecticut. So It looks like, and then from Hartford, I go to Dallas.
Oh, I see. Oh,
So come to the Sunday feast tonight in New York, in Brooklyn.
I see.
We're giving initiations today at 3 o'clock
Jai.
via Yogya. And then come and we'll chat and dance.
Thank you. Thank you. So maybe some other time then.
Yeah, I wish I could come to New Jersey, but it seems like I can't see how to do it with my particular schedule.
Yeah, thank you. We'll connect again. One more question here from Taruni Radha Mataji, that isn't lust the cause of all anarthas as explained in Bhagavad Gita? Please, can you explain from that angle? I think Mataji is referring to that 336 Arjuna's question.
Well, Krishna gives a lot of importance to getting rid of lust as the basis of the number one enemy of the soul is lust. But it's seen from different angles of vision. So if you're looking for a comparative answer, then the thing that brings us to the material world is envy. And what things that keeps us in the material world is envy. And as long as envy's there, lust is going to be there also. Well, if one can conquer over lust, then one can gradually make progress in devotional service and realize that even if I feel a little bit of enviousness, then it's not so important. Well, lust is turned into love. Actually, the living entity has natural love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When that love gets diverted to fulfilling material desires, it's simply lust. It's the same energy. It's the same energy, just like Prabhupada would use the example of electricity. You plug it into one unit, you get heating. You plug it into the other one, you get cooling. But electricity is one. So in the same way, love of God, when it goes into the direction of material desires, or that energy that makes up the soul's love for Krishna, gets diverted to love of this material world, then it's simply lust, that's all. So there's not much difference between it. It's the same energy, just diverted in different directions. So bring it back to Krishna, that's all.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Madhubha.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Thank you, Marupati. I remember my Tawako days.
Yeah. I also remember, Maharaj, that in 2016, when you came down, my father was in the hospital and you came to the hospital.
Oh, yeah. That was in New Jersey, in Central Jersey, right?
Yeah, that was in Central.
Yeah, I think David Kinandana helped me.
Yeah, somehow we connected.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj, for blessing us, for giving us your virtual association. But as Krishna Prabhu mentioned, we would like to get your personal association. Maharaj, if you are in Brooklyn, if you are available even during the week, say like Wednesday or so.
Thursday.
Okay. I will figure out the logistics and I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, if I could come, Wednesday night is my last program, so I'm supposed to leave here Friday. I have nothing on Thursday.
Okay.
So one day I'm free on Thursday. And then from there, I can go to New Haven, I guess, from Jersey instead of New York.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit longer for my driver. My driver is coming from New Haven. I don't know if you know him, Srinivas.
Srinivas,
Srinivas Acharya's name
oh,
is.
okay. Okay.
So
yeah.
I think he could come and pick me up from Jersey. I would be happy to spend one day with the devotees there. If you want to arrange a program for Thursday.
Okay. Okay, Maharaj. I'll get back to you, or we'll talk to the devotees and see if we can arrange it. I will love it personally. I don't think we have been to a temple, that new temple here. So, yeah.
I heard you're building another one, right?
Oh, no, that's the Tobacco devotees are building it in Parsippany.
Oh, okay. I heard. Yeah. I know who's building a temple down there. Is the what's that other group?
Nilamani Prabhu.
The Gujaratis. What's that one? Is
Madan Gopal, Nilamani, and Shamkar.
there's a huge temple coming up in central Jersey. What is that?
In Parsippany. Yeah.
Oh, the Swami Narayan temple. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, Swami Narayan. Is that nearby you?
That's for the south of us, but yeah, it's nearby Princeton area.
Robbinsville.
Okay.
The temple is in Robbinsville.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good. I'd be happy to come on Thursday. If we could do, I could do the Bhagavatam class on Thursday morning and stay for the rest of the day.
Okay.
In the evening, I'm supposed to connect with Namras for an interview over Zoom. But I can also do a program in the evening. We could do both if we arrange the times accordingly.
Okay, Maharaj. I'll get back to you on that, Maharaj.
I'm happy to serve. I mean, I come this close to Jersey and I didn't even stop by. I'm really a rascal.
No. We saw you at the Philadelphia Rath Yatra, and at that time itself, I was inquiring about you, but I think that day, that Sunday, you were going to Harrisburg. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My obeisances and best wishes to all the devotees. And from what I hear, things are developing nicely there. So continue.
Thank you so much
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
For your blessings.
Thank you. Panchakalpa tarubhascha kripa sindhu deva pavanebhyo vaishnavyo
Vishnu ki jai. All glories to His Holiness Chandramauli Swami Maharaj. Shastra Prabhupada.
Veda Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.